Blood dripped from her knuckles onto the white bathroom tiles. 5 bodies groaned on the floor around her. The sinks were smashed, water flooding everywhere, and somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Sage Whitmore stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, her eyes cold as winter steel. But to understand how a 16-year-old girl ended up destroying 5 of the most feared boys at Westfield High School, we need to go back 2 weeks, back to when she was just another new kid trying to survive. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. The beat-up Honda Civic looked like a rusty penny next to all the Ferraris and Teslas in the Westfield High parking lot. Sage stepped out, her worn combat boots hitting the pavement with a soft thud. Another new school. The 7th in 4 years. Military kids knew the drill: blend in. Stay quiet. Graduate. Move on. You got this, baby girl, her mom said through the window. Dark circles under her eyes from working double shifts at Denver General. Just try to make it work this time. Sage forced a smile. Always do. Mom. The lie tasted bitter. They both knew why they kept moving, not because of military orders. Those ended when Dad died. They moved because Sage had a problem with bullies, and bullies had a problem with her. Westfield High rose before her like a glass castle. Everything screamed money, from the Olympic-sized pool visible through floor-to-ceiling windows to the parking lot full of cars worth more than her mom made in 5 years. Colorado's elite sent their kids here, judges' sons, CEOs' daughters, future senators, and current mistakes. She kept her head down, walking through the main doors. Just another nobody in designer territory. The hallway stretched forever, lined with trophy cases and college pennants from schools that cost more than houses. Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Places where kids like her were diversity statistics, not students. Watch it, clearance rack. A shoulder slammed into hers, sending her books flying. Sage didn't need to look up to know the type: male, entitled, probably named something like Preston or Chad. She bent to collect her things, counting breaths. 1, 2, 3. Dad's voice echoed in her memory. Control isn't about not feeling anger. Baby girl, it's about choosing when to unleash it. You deaf or just stupid? Now she looked up. 3 boys stood there, all variations of the same theme: expensive clothes, cruel smiles, eyes that had never known real consequence. The middle one, taller than the others, had that particular brand of handsome that came from good genes and better bank accounts. Sandy blonde hair, lacrosse stick over his shoulder, Rolex catching the light. I said, watch where you're going. His voice dripped privilege. Sage stood slowly, books gathered. Sorry, didn't see you there. Something flickered in his eyes. People didn't dismiss him. You're new. It wasn't a question. Sage started walking. He stepped in front of her. I'm Jackson Caldwell. He said it like it should mean something, like she should curtsy or swoon. I throw the best parties in Denver. Private, exclusive. Consider yourself invited to this Friday's. The hallway had gone quiet. Sage became aware of eyes on them. phones lifting subtly to record. Whatever this was, it was a show. "No thanks," she said simply. "I have other plans." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. 300 students held their breath. Someone actually gasped. In the trophy case reflection, Sage saw phones dropping, jaws falling open. The two boys flanking Jackson looked like she'd just slapped their mothers. "I'm sorry." Jackson's smile tightened. "Did you just say no? Pretty sure that's what those two letters spell." Sage sidestepped him. "Nice meeting you, though." She made it 3 steps before his voice cut through the air, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Nobody says no to me." Sage kept walking. Behind her, whispers exploded like firecrackers. By the time she reached her first class, the Instagram story was already viral. Ice Queen thinks she's too good for Jackson Caldwell. The spray paint on her locker the next morning wasn't creative, but it was red and aggressive bitch in letters designed to drip like blood. Sage stared at it for a long moment, aware of the crowd gathering behind her. Phones out, waiting for her reaction. She pulled out her combination lock, worked the numbers, and opened the locker like nothing was wrong. The crowd deflated. Someone muttered about getting maintenance. But Jackson, watching from down the hall with his crew, his jaw tightened. She wasn't playing the game right. "Most girls cry," Mason Reeves said, cracking his knuckles. He was Jackson's enforcer, the muscle with anger management issues and a sealed juvenile record. "Or transfer schools." "She's not most girls," Bryce Hawkins observed. Judge Hawkins's son had a talent for reading people, which made him dangerous in different ways. "Look at her. Military kid, obviously. Probably thinks she's tough." Jackson's phone buzzed. A text from his father. "Heard there's some nobody disrespecting you. Handle it. Don't embarrass the family name." The weight of that text settled on his shoulders like a familiar noose. His older brother Marcus had graduated valedictorian, Harvard Law, already clerking for a Supreme Court justice. Jackson was the disappointment who'd barely scraped into Columbia. He couldn't even get some transfer student to show him proper respect. "We go harder," he decided. "She wants to play, let's play." The fake Instagram account appeared that afternoon at Westfield Ice Queen. The photos were sophisticated forgeries, Sage's face photoshopped onto compromising bodies. Captions suggesting she'd do anything for attention except give it to the right people. Comments flooded in within minutes, each crueler than the last. "Military brat thinks she's special. Daddy issues much. Bet she said yes to plenty at her last school." Sage discovered it during lunch when a freshman girl approached her table. Phone extended with shaking hands. I thought you should see this." Sage scrolled through the posts, her expression never changing. The work was good. Someone had spent hours on this. She screenshotted everything, noted the posting times, checked the account details. Her dad had taught her about intelligence gathering. Document everything. Build your case. "Thanks," she told the freshman, who scurried away like she'd just handed a bomb to a statue. The guidance counselor's office smelled like vanilla candles and institutional disappointment. Ms. Bradley sat across from Sage, wringing her hands as she looked at the printed screenshots. "This is unfortunate," she said finally. "But you have to understand, the Caldwells donate millions to this school, the new science wing, the stadium renovation without families like theirs, so you're not going to do anything." Sage's voice stayed level. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying, perhaps you misunderstood Jackson's invitation. He's actually a very nice young man. Maybe if you just talk to him Talk to him about the fake porn he made of me. Ms. Bradley flinched. We don't know for certain he's behind. The account was created from an IP address that traces to the lacrosse team room during practice hours, when he would have been there. Sage had done her homework. A few favors called in from Dad's old Navy buddies who worked in cybersecurity now. But you're right, I must have misunderstood. She left the office with the certainty that had dogged her through 7 schools the system protected the powerful. Always had. Always would. Justice was a luxury for people with better zip codes. That evening, her mom came home crying. Sage found her at the kitchen table. Termination papers spread like tarot cards predicting disaster. Someone called the hospital, her mom whispered. Said I had a drug problem. Demanded testing. Of course I passed. But they said they couldn't risk the liability. Budget cuts, they claimed. But through the window, Sage saw headlights cruise slowly past. A black Mercedes G-Wagon with custom rims, Jackson's car. He wanted her to see, wanted her to know. I'm so sorry, Mom. The words felt like swallowing glass. It's not your fault, baby. We'll figure it out. We always do. Her mom tried to smile, but it cracked at the edges. Maybe it's time to move again. I heard Seattle's nice. No. The word came out harder than intended. No more running. Her mom looked up, saw something in Sage's eyes that made her afraid. Sage, whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking I'm done being pushed around. She kissed her mom's forehead. Get some rest. I'll handle dinner. But she didn't cook. Instead, she went to the garage, to the corner where Dad's things waited in dust-covered boxes. His Navy SEAL trunk sat like a buried secret. Combination lock still set to his death date. Inside, past the folded flag and medal cases, she found what she was looking for. Training videos. Hours of them. Her 8-year-old self working through Krav Maga drills while Dad coached. It's not about being the strongest. His voice echoed from the laptop screen. It's about being the smartest. Control the situation. Control yourself. Strike only when necessary. But when you strike, make it count, Sage whispered along with the recording. She was deep in footage when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then saw the video attachment. Her blood chilled. Security footage from the hospital. Her mom walking to her car after being fired. Shoulders shaking with sobs. The angle meant someone had been waiting, recording. The message below read, "This is just the beginning. Kneel, or we destroy her completely." Sage's hands didn't shake. Her breathing stayed even. But something inside her shifted, like tectonic plates realigning before an earthquake. They'd crossed the line from her to her family. There were rules to warfare, even in high school. They'd just broken the cardinal one. The next morning came with escalation disguised as accidents. Walking to first period. A shoulder check sent her into a locker. Oops, didn't see you there. A book's knocked from her hands in the hallway. So clumsy. My bad. Each time, phones appeared, recording her non-reactions, waiting for her to break. She didn't give them the satisfaction. By lunch. Frustration crackled through Jackson's crew like electricity. They sat at their usual table, the one with the view of the entire cafeteria. Positioned like a throne overlooking peasants. Sage sat alone across the room, eating quietly, reading a book like their campaign didn't exist. She's mocking us, Mason growled, crushing his water bottle, making us look weak. Patience, Bryce counseled. Everyone breaks. We just haven't found her trigger yet. That's when Jackson had his idea, the one that would finally get a reaction. He whispered to Mason, who grinned like Christmas morning had come early. Thursday morning, Sage opened her locker to find a dead mouse, carefully positioned on her textbooks. A note tucked under its tiny corpse read, "You're next." The crowd gathered instantly, phones rising like salutes. This would be it the moment the Ice Queen cracked. Tears, screams. Maybe she'd finally run to the principal. The betting pool on her reaction had reached $500. Instead, Sage calmly picked up the mouse by its tail. The crowd parted as she walked through the cafeteria, straight to Jackson's table. He didn't see her coming, too busy laughing at something on Mason's phone. She stopped directly behind him. "You dropped something." The mouse landed in his lunch with a wet plop, for the first time since elementary school. Jackson Caldwell flinched, actually jerked back from his own tray while a dead rodent floated in his organic kale smoothie. The cafeteria erupted. Not in laughter, nobody dared laugh at Jackson, but in shocked silence, punctuated by rapid phone clicking. "Might want to work on your aim," Sage added conversationally. "Seems a little off." She walked away, leaving Jackson staring at his contaminated lunch while his crew waited for orders. Bryce was the first to speak. Voice low, She touched it with her bare hands." "Psycho," Mason muttered, but there was something new in his voice. Not quite fear, but close. Jackson's phone buzzed. His father again. "Heard about the mouse incident. Are you really being shown up by some nobody? The donation gala is tomorrow. Don't embarrass me further." That's what pushed him over the edge. Not the disrespect, not the mouse, but the idea that his father had heard. That somewhere in his corner office overlooking downtown Denver, Alexander Caldwell was shaking his head at his disappointment of a son who couldn't even control his own school. "Tomorrow," Jackson said quietly. "We end this tomorrow." The setup came through Bryce, because of course it did. He approached Sage during AP History while she was reading about the Salem witch trials. Ironic, considering what they were doing to her. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat beside her. "Sage, right?" She glanced up, immediately suspicious. Bryce had been there for every incident, recording like the rest. "What do you want? Look, I'm not like them. Okay." He had the decency to look ashamed. "Jackson's my friend, but this has gone too far. The thing with your mom's job, that wasn't cool." Sage studied him, good-looking in that prep school way, with worried eyes that seemed genuine, but she'd learned to trust her instincts. And her instincts said this was wrong. "Why are you telling me this? Because maybe we can fix this, all of it. You just need to understand Jackson. His dad is intense. His brother is basically perfect. He's under all this pressure." Bryce pulled out his textbook. "I'm behind in history. Heard you're acing it. Maybe we could study together and I could help you understand the politics here. Navigate things better." The smart play was to say no. Every alarm in her head screamed trap. But Sage was tired. Tired of eating alone. Tired of fighting alone. Tired of being alone. Maybe, just maybe, one of them had a conscience. "Library," she conceded. "Public space, 1 hour." Bryce smiled. It looked real. "You won't regret this, narrator." She would absolutely regret this. The library was empty when she arrived. Bryce waved from a table in the back, books already spread out. They worked in relative peace for 30 minutes, and Sage found herself almost relaxing. He was smart, funny when he wasn't trying to impress anyone. For a moment. She let herself imagine this was real, that maybe she'd found an ally. "I need to grab a book from the history section," Bryce said, standing. "Chapter 12. Right." She nodded, highlighting a passage about mob mentality. The irony wasn't lost on her. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. A sick feeling bloomed in her stomach. She packed quickly. But as she stood, Bryce reappeared. "Hey, sorry, couldn't find it. Want to check the classroom? Mr. Peterson sometimes keeps extra copies." Every instinct screamed no, but she'd come this far, made this choice. Might as well see it through. They walked down empty hallways, footsteps echoing off polished floors. The history classroom was dark when they arrived. "Light switch is in the back," Bryce said. "I'll get it." She stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind her. In the darkness, she heard breathing that wasn't hers. Multiple sets of lungs working, waiting. The lights flicked on. Mason stood by the window. 2 other lacrosse players flanked the door. Jackson sat on the teacher's desk, like a king holding court. And Bryce moved to stand with them, apology dying on his lips. "Surprise?" Jackson said softly. "Did you really think any of us would want to be your friend?" Sage's bag slipped to the floor. She counted exits, measured distances, calculated odds. 4 of them. 1 of her. No cameras in this old wing. They'd planned this perfectly. "Nothing to say?" Mason cracked his knuckles. "No clever comebacks." "I'm curious," Sage said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "What's the plan here? Beat me up, break my spirit, make me beg." "All of the above," Jackson confirmed. "You humiliated me, publicly, repeatedly. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" "I think," Sage said slowly, "that you're so used to people bowing down, you've forgotten what a spine looks like." Mason lunged. It happened so fast, the others barely registered movement. Sage flowed like water, using his momentum against him. Her hand found his wrist, twisted at precisely the right angle, and pushed. The crack of breaking bone echoed off classroom walls. The war had just begun. And now they knew she could fight back. The thing about breaking a bully's thumb is that it sends a message. The problem is, bullies rarely know how to read. Friday morning arrived with the kind of tension that makes the air feel thick. Sage could taste it the moment she walked through Westfield High's doors. No shoulder checks, no knocked books, no whispered threats. Just eyes following her every move, and phones tracking her like security cameras. Mason's cast had become the school's most discussed accessory. White plaster covered in lacrosse team signatures, worn like a badge of honor twisted into warning. The story had mutated overnight, depending on who told it. Sage had either used ancient martial arts, military torture techniques, or straight witchcraft. Nobody mentioned how easily his bone had snapped, like a dried twig under her grip. "She's dangerous," she heard someone whisper. "Psycho-dangerous." Good. Let them think that. Maybe they'd leave her alone. But Sage knew better. She'd been through this dance before. The quiet before retaliation. The planning phase. Jackson Caldwell hadn't built his kingdom on forgiveness. He'd built it on examples. Her mom looked worse at breakfast. The stress of unemployment was eating her alive. And the bills? Sage had seen them stacked on the counter. Past due notices, final warnings, all because she'd said no to the wrong boy. "I have 3 interviews today," her mom said, trying to sound optimistic. "Denver Medical Center, Rocky Mountain Regional, even that new clinic downtown." "That's great, Mom!" Sage didn't mention the calls she'd overheard. Someone was poisoning the well, making sure Nancy Whitmore stayed unemployed. The Caldwell reach extended far beyond school walls. "Maybe we should just—" "We're not moving." Sage's voice came out harder than intended. "Not this time." Her mom studied her, saw something that made her reach across the table. "Baby girl, I know you think you need to be strong, but your dad wouldn't want— Dad would want me to stand up for myself." The words tasted like truth and tragedy mixed together. "That's what he trained me for." After her mom left for interviews that would go nowhere, Sage found herself in the garage again. The trunk called to her like a siren song. Inside, past the medals and memories, she found the video she needed. Not training footage this time, just her dad, talking to the camera, dated 2 weeks before his last deployment. "Hey, baby girl," his voice filled the dusty space. "If you're watching this, it means I'm not there to say it in person, and that kills me. But I need you to know something. The skills I taught you, they're not for hurting people. They're for protecting yourself and others who can't protect themselves." Sage felt tears building. She never cried. Not since the funeral. "You're going to face bullies, baby. The world's full of them. Some wear uniforms, some wear suits, some wear smiles. But they're all the same underneath small people who make themselves feel big by making others feel small." On screen, her dad leaned closer to the camera. "When you fight, and you will have to fight, remember that every bully is just a scared kid who learned the wrong lessons. That doesn't excuse them. But understanding your enemy is the first step to defeating them. And sometimes, baby girl, the best victory is showing them there's another way." The video paused on his smile, that crooked grin that had made her feel safe even when mortars were falling overseas. Sage touched the screen, whispering, "I miss you, Dad, and I don't think they want to learn another way." At school, the trap was already being set. Sage noticed the patterns by third period. The lacrosse team hadn't left after morning practice. Their cars still filled the parking lot despite afternoon games being tomorrow. During passing periods, she caught glimpses of them not approaching, just watching, tracking. Like hunters who'd learned their prey had teeth, Bryce wouldn't meet her eyes in history. His guilt radiated off him in waves. But guilt without action was just self-pity wearing a mask. She'd learned that lesson in schools 1 through 6. By lunch, the plan revealed itself through absence. The cafeteria felt wrong too quiet, despite being full. Then she realized why. Jackson's table sat empty. His entire crew missing. But their girlfriends remained, stealing glances at Sage between whispers. A freshman boy approached her table, shaking. "They told me to give you this." A note, handwritten. Jackson's perfect prep school penmanship. "You think you're a warrior, warriors face their enemies, unless you're just another scared little girl playing dress-up in Daddy's memories." Below, a location 4th floor bathroom, the old wing, no cameras, no witnesses, just them and whatever came next. Sage crumpled the note slowly. The freshman fled like he'd delivered a bomb. Around her, the cafeteria held its breath. Everyone knew. The whole school was in on it, watching this gladiator match play out in real time. She could leave, walk out the front doors, and never come back. Pack up their life and move to school number 8. Her mom would understand. She always understood. But running meant they won, not just here, but everywhere. Every school had its Jacksons, its Masons, its Bryces, if not them. Then others with different faces but the same disease. The infection of unchecked power. No, no more running. Sage stood, gathered her things with deliberate calm. The cafeteria watched her exit like a funeral procession. Someone started to follow, phone raised. But their friend grabbed their arm. This wasn't for public consumption. This was private warfare. The fourth floor hadn't been renovated since the 90s. Faded linoleum, flickering fluorescents, the ghost of teenage desperation soaked into the walls. They'd chosen well, isolated, forgotten, perfect for what they thought would happen. Sage texted her mom, "Working late on art project. Love you." Then she climbed the stairs. Each step echoed in the empty stairwell. Her breathing stayed even. Controlled. 4 years of different schools had taught her the rhythm of violence, how it built like a symphony. Starting with whispers and ending with screams, she'd just never been the one to make others scream before. The bathroom door was propped open, inviting, inside. Old mirrors reflected tired light across cracked tile. It smelled like industrial cleaner fighting a losing battle against decades of teenage misery. She entered. The door slammed shut behind her. They emerged from the stalls like roaches when the lights go out. 5 of them. Jackson front and center, flanked by Mason with his cast, Bryce avoiding eye contact, and 2 others she recognized from the lacrosse team. Derek Chen and Tyler Morrison, both seniors, both built like people who'd never met consequences they couldn't buy their way out of. "You actually came," Jackson said, genuine surprise coloring his voice. "I thought you'd run. They usually run." "I'm not usual." Sage set her bag down carefully. Inside, her phone was already recording. A trick she'd learned 3 schools ago. Evidence was better than witnesses. "So what now, 5 of you? 1 of me. You knock me around. Feel like big men. Now." Jackson stepped forward. "You learn respect. See, I've been thinking about your dad. Navy SEAL. Died overseas. Left you and Mommy all alone. That's rough. But it doesn't give you the right to disrespect me, to embarrass me, to make me look weak." "You did that yourself." His face darkened. "On your knees." Sage tilted her head. "What? You heard me? Get on your knees and apologize. Beg properly. Maybe we just mess up your face a little instead of putting you in the hospital. Counter-offer." Sage said calmly, "You all walk out right now. We pretend this never happened. Monday. You ignore me. I ignore you. Peaceful coexistence." Mason laughed, harsh and breaking. "Bitch broke my thumb. She doesn't get peace." "Final chance," and Sage continued like he hadn't spoken. "Leave now, or I defend myself, and you explain to Daddy why his donation money is going to medical bills." That's when Jackson made his second biggest mistake. The first was starting this war. The second was saying, "Hold her down, let's teach this bitch some respect." They moved like they'd done this before. Coordinated. Practiced. How many girls had stood where Sage stood? How many had knelt? Apologized. Begged. How many had transferred schools with stories nobody would believe because who'd trust the word of nobody against the Caldwell dynasty? Bryce grabbed for her from behind. Derek and Tyler spread to flank. Mason hung back, cast limiting his options. Jackson waited in the center, King watching his pawns move. Time slowed. Sage's world narrowed to heartbeats and distances, Her dad's voice echoed across years. When outnumbered, create chaos. Use their numbers against them. Strike fast. Strike hard. Strike first. Bryce reached her first, his hands aimed for her shoulders, trying to pin her arms. Classic restraint position. He'd probably learned it from some self-defense class his parents made him take. Problem was, he'd learned from people who'd never really fought. Sage had learned from someone who had. She flowed backward into him, using his momentum. Her elbow found his solar plexus with surgical precision. The air exploded from his lungs as he doubled over. She grabbed his collar, pivoted, and used him as a shield against Tyler's incoming rush. Tyler couldn't stop in time. He crashed into Bryce, sending both sprawling. Sage was already moving, muscle memory taking over. Derek came from the left, reaching for her hair. She dropped low, swept his legs, watched him crash into the sink. The porcelain groaned but held. 3 seconds. 3 down. Mason charged despite his cast. Rage overriding sense. Sage met him halfway, inside his reach. Her palm struck his chest, driving him backward. His head met the paper towel dispenser with a metallic crunch. He slid down the wall, eyes rolling white. 7 seconds. 4 down. That left Jackson. He stood frozen, brain trying to process how his 5-on-1 ambush had become a 1-on-1 reckoning. Around him, his friends groaned and writhed. Bryce was still gasping for air. Tyler held his ribs. Derek's nose painted the floor red. Mason wasn't moving at all. "You were saying something about teaching lessons," Sage asked. Breathing barely elevated. Jackson's fear transformed into something worse: desperation. He'd never fought fair in his life. But he couldn't run, not when the recording phones would document his cowardice. His father's voice probably echoed in his head the way her dad's echoed in hers. He swung wild, a haymaker born of privilege and panic. Sage could have dodged easily, could have let him exhaust himself swinging at air. But sometimes, her dad had taught her, you needed to make a point. She caught his fist mid-swing. Jackson's eyes widened as she twisted, using his own force to spin him. His back hit the mirrors hard enough to spiderweb the glass. She followed, pinning him there, forearm across his throat, not choking, just controlling. "Listen close," she said, voice low, "because I'm only saying this once. You don't own this school. You don't own me, and you sure as hell don't own my mother. The harassment stops. The calls stop. All of it stops. Or next time, I stop holding back." "You're insane," he gasped. "No, I'm trained. There's a difference." She leaned closer. "Your dad already broke you. Jackson. Every impossible standard, every disappointed look, every comparison to your perfect brother. You're so broken, you think breaking others will fix you. But it won't. It just makes more broken people." Something shifted in his eyes. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and she saw the scared kid underneath. The one who'd never be good enough. The one who'd learned that power meant cruelty, because that's all he'd ever known. Then pride reasserted itself. "My father will destroy you. Both of you. You'll never." The bathroom door exploded open. Not police, not security. Principal Watkins himself, followed by 2 security guards and the school nurse. They surveyed the destruction 5 boys down. 1 girl standing. Blood on tile, but none of it hers. "What in the hell?" Watkins started. "Check my bag." Sage interrupted. "Front pocket. My phone's been recording everything." The principal looked between her and Jackson, calculating political costs. The Caldwell donations versus assault charges. Money versus morality. For a moment, Sage thought he'd choose wrong. Then one of the security guards, an older man with military bearing, spoke up. "5-on-1, sir, and she's got defensive wounds consistent with being grabbed first." He'd noticed the red marks on her arms from Bryce's grip. Pretty clear case of self-defense. Sage pulled out her phone, played the audio. "Hold her down. Let's teach this bitch some respect." Watkins closed his eyes. Even Caldwell money couldn't wash that clean. The aftermath moved in fast forward. Ambulances for the boys, nothing permanent. But enough to hurt. Police statements with Sage's recording as evidence. Jackson's father arriving in a thundercloud of expensive suits and legal threats, only to leave silent after hearing his son's words on tape. By Monday, the news had broken wide. Teen girl defends herself against 5 attackers. The video evidence made it ironclad. The fact that she'd walked into a known ambush and still defended it as self-protection only made her more sympathetic. The Caldwells left Denver by Wednesday. Rumors said they'd relocated to Switzerland, where American assault charges held less weight and family shame could be buried in bank vaults. The other boys faced suspension pending expulsion hearings. Their families' lawyers worked overtime, but recorded evidence was hard to argue against. Sage's mom got a call Thursday morning. Denver Medical Center had reconsidered her application. Suddenly, mysteriously, the position was available again. Better hours, better pay. Nobody said the words lawsuit settlement, but the understanding hung in the air like morning mist. Friday brought unexpected changes. Sage arrived at school to find her locker cleaned, repainted, and surrounded by people. Not harassers, just people. Kids who'd been invisible before. Victims of smaller cruelties who'd found courage in her larger stand. "Thank you," a sophomore girl whispered, showing old bruises on her arms. "He was my ex. Said nobody would believe me over him. But after what you did—" "I didn't do it for anyone else," Sage admitted. "Doesn't matter, you still did it." By lunch, her empty table had become refugee camp for the quietly rebellious. Kids who didn't fit the Westfield mold, scholarship students, transfer kids, the ones who'd learned to be invisible to survive. They didn't talk much, but their presence said everything. Maya Chen, student body president and Derek's older sister, approached during passing period. "What you did to my brother, he had it coming. He's had it coming for years. Our parents are finally getting him help, real help. So, thanks." Even Bryce found her after school, still moving gingerly from bruised ribs. "I'm sorry. For all of it. I knew it was wrong, but I was too scared to—" He trailed off. "That's not an excuse, just— I'm sorry." Sage studied him, saw genuine remorse, fighting with ingrained privilege. "Apologize with actions, not words. There are other kids here who need someone to stand up for them. Be better." He nodded, understanding the weight of that challenge. Change was harder than apologies, but possible. That evening, Sage sat in her dad's garage sanctuary one last time. The trunk was open. Videos paused on his smiling face. She'd proven she could fight. Had his skills, his training, his strength. But sitting there, surrounded by ghosts and memories, she understood what he'd really been trying to teach. "It's not about the fighting," she told his frozen image. "It's about when not to fight." It's about knowing you can destroy someone and choosing not to unless they force your hand. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. The garage door opened. Her mom entered, still in her new hospital scrubs. Without words, she sat beside her daughter, taking in the shrine to a man they'd both loved and lost. "He'd be proud," her mom said finally. "He'd be worried I enjoyed it too much." Sage's honesty surprised them both. "When they went down, when I had that control, part of me wanted to keep going, to hurt them the way they'd hurt others. But you didn't. But I didn't." Sage closed the trunk gently. "That's what makes us warriors, not monsters. Knowing when to stop." They sat in comfortable silence, two women who'd survived loss and emerged stronger. Outside, Denver sprawled beneath setting sun, unaware that in one exclusive high school, the hierarchy had shifted. Fear had given way to respect. Cruelty had met consequence. And somewhere in Switzerland, a boy named Jackson Caldwell stared at his reflection and wondered if being feared was really better than being liked. If his father's approval was worth becoming someone worth leaving. If maybe, just maybe, a girl who'd broken his pride had accidentally shown him how to rebuild it better. Change rippled outward like disturbed water. From one girl who said no. One girl who refused to kneel. One girl who'd learned from her father that real strength wasn't about hurting others. It was about having the power to destroy and the wisdom not to, unless they really asked for it. And sometimes, when the bathroom tiles ran red with consequence and justice wore combat boots, even bullies could learn that everyone has a breaking point. The lucky ones learn that lesson from watching. The unlucky ones learn it from experience. Sage Whitmore had taught that lesson to 5 boys who thought power meant cruelty. They'd probably never thank her for it. But their future victims would, and in the arithmetic of justice. That balanced the equation perfectly. Her father had taught her to be a warrior. Westfield High had taught her when to fight. But the most important lesson that came from within. From understanding that real power wasn't making others kneel, it was helping them stand. And if some people needed to be knocked down before they learned that lesson, well, she had her father's skills for that too. The war was over. The rebuilding could begin. And somewhere in the space between violence and victory, a teenage girl finally understood what her father had been trying to teach her all along. Being strong enough to fight meant being wise enough to know when the fighting should stop. Class dismissed.